Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel Java Classified. In previous video, I have shown you to implement the security by using Spring provided default tables. That tables I have used in my local DB and trying to implement the Spring security. In this video, I will use Spring JPA and Spring Security, Spring Web and Postgres database for implementing the Spring security. So let's create the Spring Boot projects. So for creating the Spring Boot projects, I'm going to Spring Initializer in the Chrome browser. In here, we have selected the project as a main and Spring Boot version selecting as a 3.4.2 snapshot. Now we are going to define group ID as a spring.jpa. Now let's define the artifact ID as a Spring JPA security. Spring JPA with security. Now we are defining the same artifact name as a project name. Here defining the package name as a is com.spring.jpa security and selecting the packages as a jar. Java version selecting as a 17. Now let's add the dependency. In here we are going to add DevTools, Actuator, WebTools. Now going to add Spring Security, JPA, Spring Data JPA. Now going to add Postgres driver. For checking the dependency, you can click the Explore button. After clicking the Explore button, you will see all added dependencies as well. Right now, I'm not adding the Lombok and the selecting Java version you can see in the dependencies. Now closing this one, generating the projects by clicking the generate button. Once project has been downloaded, then we copy this project in the Spring Boot Spring Security folder. Now project has been downloaded. Let's copy this project in our Spring Security folder. Copying here. After copying this, we will refresh our IntelliJ because I have already opened this folder in our IntelliJ. So let's go to our IntelliJ. In here, just right click in the interview folder. Now going to refresh it. Where is refresh? Reload from disk. Going to click reload from disk. Now going to SB security folder. You can see Spring JPA with security projects in projects is visible. Now going to pom.xml. In here, clicking the right click and adding as a maven projects. Wait until all the dependencies has not been downloaded. So I'm waiting. Once all the dependencies has been downloaded, then we will implement the Spring security. Now all the dependencies has been downloaded. Let's go to SRC folder, main folder, resources folder. In here, I'm going to change application.property to YAML. Clicking refactor. Now let's define the Spring application name. In here, we are defining the name of the Spring projects, removing the above property. Also defining the server port by using server colon port. In here we are defining the port 7070. Now in the src folder or for Postgres database, I'm going to create a Docker Compose file because I have already installed the Docker in my local. If you are not installed the Docker, then you need to manually set up the Postgres databases in your local system. So I'm going to create here Docker Compose file for the Postgres databases. Postgres Docker, Postgres Compose .yaml. Now in here I'm going to define the version, defining version as a 3, defining the services. In here we are defining the Postgres as a service. Now defining the images. In the images we are defining Postgres container name, also defining same as a Postgres, defining the port as well. In here port we are going to 544. Now container port will be 45432. Now defining the environment variable. In environment variable we are going to pass postgres postgres user as a admin. Now going to define postgres password as a root. Now going to define postgres db as a JPA db. Now we need to define network as well. So here we need to define networks with the parallel of service. Here defining the SB JPA network. Now defining the driver as a bridge, using these networks in our Postgres container, defining SB JPA. Now let's go to define PG admin as well. PG admin. In here defining the image name d dpage dpage PG admin 4, defining container name as well PG admin. Now defining the port as well. In the port we are going to define the external port as a 8090 and internal port will be 80. Now defining the environment variable as well. In the environment we are going to define username and password for logging purpose in the PG admin. So let's define the username and password. PG admin, PG admin, PG admin default email. In here email we are going to pass JPA admin. Now we are going to define PG admin default password as a admin. Now we are going to define networks as well. I will use the same network as we are using in Postgres. So our Docker Compose file is created. Now we need to run this Docker Compose file. So I'm going to open terminal in the src folder. Here right clicking the yes, resources folder, clicking the terminal. Now let's check the Docker version. Let's check the running container. There is no running container. Let's check the stopped container. No running container is available and nothing is stopped container. So I'm going to run our Docker Compose file. of enter it. Once Postgres and pgadmin container created, then we need to log in into the pgadmin and trying to connect Postgres server. So I'm going to our projects until the container is not created. In here, in application property, we are going to define our databases information. So here database data source. Now defining the URL. In the URL we are passing JDBC Postgres Postgres colon localhost. In the compose file we have defining the external port as a 5444. So I'm going to define this port and giving the database's name as a JPA. Now defining the password as well. In the password we are going to define the root. You can see in the databases we are defining the port as a root. Now going to define the user as well. So in the user we are passing as a admin. Defining the driver as well. Driver class name. In here we are going to define the driver org postgres sql postgresql dot driver. Also defining the JPA, defining the show SQL as a true for checking the syntax of SQL. Now going to define the Hibernate. In the Hibernate we are going to define DDL auto as a update. For DDL auto information I will provide in another video. Right now I am using update. Update it will first check the databases. If table is already available, then check all the columns which is defined in our Java classes. If databases tables column and our database our Java class columns are matched, then it will not update or altered any columns in the databases. If any database in any columns is not available in the databases and which is present in the Java class, then it will alter the table. So I'm going to define now. Let's create the controller controller package controller package. Now going to create entity package. My bad. Removing this. No need to this one. By mistake it is created. So removing this one. Now going to define configuration package configuration package. Now going to define as a entity and repository entity repository repository implement service dot impl. Now going to define DTOs. Let's define entity. In here we are going to define user entity. In the user entity we are going to annotated entity for treating for connected the databases and defining the table name, defining the table name in here as a JPA defining the SB user. Also, let's define our long in here ID. This is a unique ID and treated as a primary key, so I'm going to add ID. Now going to add generated value for auto increment strategic generated value type identity. Now going to define private string username. And here going to define column. In the column we are going to label equal to false. Now going to add as well private string password. In the password it is also not nullable, so I'm going to nullable adding the column nullable false. And username is also unique, so I'm going to add unique as a true. Defining the enabled for login purpose, it is enabled or not, so going to add public boolean enabled. In here we are going to define column nullable false. Let's define the relationship of the roles table. So here private set defining role sv roles. Now new highest set. Let's create the tables sb roles Java classes. Also we need to add at the rate entity annotation. Here going to add table. In the table we are going to define sb roles. Also adding the private long id, adding the id notation generated value. Here defining the strategic identity. Let's add the role name private string role name at the rate column nullable false, and it is also unique as a true. Let's go to our user entity. Here import the set classes. Now let's define many to many relationship. In the many to many relationship we are going to define fetch type earlier, fetch type eager. Now define the join table, join table. In here defining the name of the table sb roles user role, sorry, we need to define the user roles table. Now column add the join column. In here join columns. In here we need to define join columns. Now let's add the join column, defining the name as a user id column. Now universe join columns. In here we are going to define name roles id role id. So let's go to our roles Java classes. In here we need to also private list of user entity, users, new hash. Oh, sorry, we need to define here as a set, and here we are going to define hash set. Also, we need to define mapping many to many mapped by rules. Rules is nothing but the variable of the user entity which is defined as a rules. So we are going to define same as a rules mapped by rules. Now let's generate the setter getter because I have not used Lombok. If we are using Lombok, then no need to generate the setter and getter, just add the annotation, then it will provide the setter getter constructor as well. So I'm going to generate the setter, generate, selecting all. Also let's implement the generate. What happened here? Okay, generate. In here we are going to also override the equal sign hash code. Now let's go to user entity. In here we are also going to generate the setter getter and equal and hash code. Yeah, now our entity has been ready. Now let's go to repository. In repository we are going to define interface as a user sb user repository extend JPA repository. In the JPA repository, in here we are going to define a user entity, comma long. Long is nothing but our primary key data types. Adding as a repository annotation, adding the optional user entity, find by username by adding username as a string. Now let's create another interfaces which implements roles. Roles repository. It is also extend the JPA repository, providing the SV roles and providing the primary key data type, adding as a repository annotation. Now our repository, and let's im- let's implement the service classes. In the service classes we are going to define user repo user sb user service sb user service. In the sb user service we are going to add as a service here, defining the DTOs as well. First one, so I'm going to define DTO in here, or let's don't create the DTO. Right now we will use only entities. In upcoming video I will use the DTOs and DTOs as well as mapper for converting the one Java class data to another Java class. So let's leave it DTOs right now. Here we are going to use the repository private and our user repository user SB user repository SB user repository SB user repository. Now let's implement the user details service interface. Let's override it. Methods load username. So here we are going to use our SB user repository SB dot find by name. In here we are going to pass username dot or get through user not found exception user not found user not found exception and storing in a local variable as a user. Now let's create a user details custom user details extends user extend user sorry we need to implement user details what happening extends what happening custom user detail. Let's implement user of the Spring Boot user details user credential. So we need to implement user details. Hi, let's check here. Get password, get return true. Interfaces for implementation. Yeah, then we need to implement this all the methods. So I'm going to implement only four methods for user details interfaces. Here let's use our private private user user entity user hiding as a auto wire, or we can pass by using constructor. So here using the get password hiding user dot get username, also adding the removing this one. We are not going to use the parent classes enabled. Get enable user dot get enabled set get I is enabled. Now let's define our users dot is dot get roles dot stream dot map. In the map we are going to define roles column new simple grant request here roles dot get roles dot to collect list returning it. Now we have used this one as here. Let's create a constructor with parameterized constructor. It is not pass, so I'm going to pass here user entity user for tightly bind. This dot user removing the auto wire. What happened in here? Okay, we need to add one more to collect. Yeah, now it is fine. I have added the constructor in here. Let's go to our SB user service. In here we are going to pass new custom user. We are going to pass our user details data. Now it's time to create the controller. We are going to create dummy controller. Right now I'm going to delete the DTOs. I will provide the proper project setups in upcoming video for the Spring Security. Right now just only know how to implement the Spring Security by using our custom tables using JPA. So I'm going to delete the DTOs package and creating the three APIs. Home controller. Home controller will access after the login. Adding at the rate REST controller. Public REST response entity. Adding as a string get home. Return new response entity. In here we are going to passes. It is home controller http http status code dot http status dot ok. Defining the URL endpoint as a get mapping slash home. Now let's go to define registration controller. Registration controller. In here, this registration controller no need to required for the security. So here we are going to define response entity. Let's copy this response. I will change after copying this one and adding as a registration. It is a registration controller. Now let's go to defined item controller as well. Item controller In here we are going to add the rest controller, copying this data, home API and item controllers. Item API will need the authentication. Here get item. We are going to define item controller, and here it is required for the authentication. We are also going to define res registration, user registration. Now let's define login. Login and registration API will not required to the login controller. Login API not required for the authentication, and other all the API required for authentication. So here user login, defining the user login. Now defining as a user login. All API I have just used a dummy purpose. In upcoming video, I will provide a proper Spring security examples. So I'm going to configuration. In here, we are going to define Spring Spring config, adding at the rate configuration. Let's filter security filter chain. Security filter chain. Here we are going to define HTTP security. HTTP. Define HTTP dot authorize HTTP request. Here we are going to define request dot request method. In here we are going to pass home item comma home item. Both two API are required for the authentication. So going to add here that authenticated. Let's define another request method. In here registration and login API not required for the authentication. So I'm providing these two API, user login dot permit all. Now let's add the permit all, that is fine. Now let's form login flb flb dot login processing, adding as a login. These login is by default using Spring security login page. In upcoming video, I will provide our custom Spring custom pages for the login. Now let's add the user details. In the user details, we are going to add private our user details service which is created SB user, where is just go to custom SB user service, SB user service, SB user service. Now going to add auto wire SB user, providing this one dot build. Now let's go to add public password encryptor, password encoder, return We are going to use password bcrypt encoder right now. Hiding as a VN notation for IOC initialization purpose. Here, Spring Security chain, we are also adding VN. Now, our configuration has been done. Let's go to our service. Here I have added service annotation. Yeah, that is fine. And entity here. Let's go to use Spring Security inline implementation for storing the data into the databases. So let's go to our main projects, and here implements runnable command runnable command line runnable, adding this method. In this method we will save the data save the our data into the databases. These data will use in the login. So defining private user repository SB user repository. Also let's private SB roles. What is the defined repository of the roles repository? So here we are going to define roles repository, adding as a auto wire annotation. Now let's go to our command line runner. Here we are going to define roles. We are going to define SB roles. So copying this class, where is our main classes, roles, new roles. Let's add roles dot set role. We are going to add admin right now, and adding set as ISB roles, SB roles set new highest set. Let's add SB role set dot add. First import the packages of the set interfaces. Now let's add roles here. Now save the our SB roles by using our roles repository roles. Now let's create the user repository as well, user class entity for saving the data. So here is our entity, yeah, user entity. So I'm going to define the user entity, new user entity. If you are using a proper project, then you need to create a API and add the roles and users data into the tables by using REST endpoints. Right now we are not going to implement the REST endpoints. In upcoming video I will implement the REST endpoints. In the REST endpoints we will store the data into the databases by using REST endpoints. So here we are going to define the username dot set enabled as a true. Now user entity dot set password. In the password we are going to use password encoder. So here we will also private password encoder, adding at the auto-wire annotation encoder encoder dot encode. In here we are going to pass admin 1234, adding the user entity dot user set username as a admin, adding the user entity dot roles Get roles dot set roles. Get roles dot add. In here we are going to pass our roles. What is the roles? Our roles is a rule. So I'm going to define roles here. These lines not required right now. So I'm commenting this one. Let's save this data into the databases user repository as user repository dot save user entity. Now our Spring projects with the JPA has been ready. Let's run these projects and check it is running as expected or not. So going to my bed, we need to run these projects. I have run different projects. Let's open the CMD. In the CMD, we are going to check Docker PS running container information. Uh, 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 uh. We need to run the Docker Compose file of the Postgres. Right now it is stopped as I see. Yeah, PG admin has been exited. So let's run the PG admin first one, stopping all the application, stop all two. Let's go to our src folder and run the compose file. So I'm going to open explore, going to open cmd. In here let's check the running container, stopping this container docker stop postgres. Now let's check the running container. There is no running container right now and stop container R2. Let's run the docker compose. What happened? Let's check the stopped container first one. Also checking the logs. So why our pg admin is not running. Reset pg admin default email environment and variable. Try again. JPA admin doesn't appear to a valid email. Okay. Here Docker Compose file we need to add as a mail like @gmail. Now running the Docker Compose file. Docker Compose, I hope it will work. Docker Compose hyphen f up. Enter it. Going to create Postgres container and then PG admin container. Let's see what will happen. I hope it will work. Postgres container is created now. PG admin container are going to create. Let's wait until the databases is not up. Once the databases is up, then we need to run our application. I think PG admin is also up. Let's go to our browser and trying to run PG admin. The PG admin port is 8090. So I'm going to Chrome browser. In here, localhost, enter it. Yeah, now PG admin is up. Let's copy the username and password. Username is a email is a jpaadmin @gmail.com and password is a admin. Login. And now I'm able to log in the PG admin, adding the Postgres databases name. So I'm going to add JPA dev, adding here connection as a In here we are going to the host name, we are going to pass Postgres. We are internally using the connected Postgres in the same network. So that's why we will pass the Postgres here. Let's check the database's name. Database's username and password. Username is a admin and password as a admin 1234 and databases as a post. Databases is a JPA DB. So I'm going to define JPA DB in the databases. Save it. Let's check why it is not going to connect Postgres JPA admin. Password authentication failed user admin. What happened here? Let's check again. Postgres Compose. Okay, password is a root. So we are going to define here root. Yeah, now I'm able to connect here. Let's check the databases. JPA databases schema table. Here there is no table available right now. So let's go to run our application. Once our application is run, then it will create the database table. Here username as a admin. What happened here? Username admin. So I'm going to remove this one, running it. Let's check what will happen. I hope it is run in the first time. Let's check. Now data has been inserted. You can see in the console. And let's check the databases. So I'm going to PG admin, refreshing the tables. Yeah, three tables has been created. One is SB user. Let's check the data. Yeah, that data has been inserted in here. Also, let's go to user roles, checking the data. In here, user ID, role ID also inserted. Let's check the SB roles. In the SB roles, our role has been defined in here. Yeah, admin. So let's go to access our API. So I'm going to browser HTTP localhost 7070 and trying to access registration API. Registration API. Yeah, I'm able to access. Now let's go to access home API. Home API will not be able to access. Now we need to pass the username and password in this API. So I'm going to add admin and admin 1234 because in the insertion time I have used the username and password as a admin and admin as a username and password as a admin1234. Let's sign in. What happened in here? Let's again add the username admin and password. Let's check the password admin1234. Okay, add the admin1234, enter it. What happened? Let's check here in code and internal while trying to authenticate the user. What happened here? Roles admin. Okay, while trying to authenticate username path, an internal occurred error. Okay, let's update the role as a role as a right. don't use as a admin. Then let's check again. Maybe it will work. So I'm going to refreshing it. Home admin, adding the password admin 1234, signing in. Also not able to access. Why? Null authentication user null. Let's let's update the data. Then we need to run the application again. So I'm going to our Java classes, main classes. Here username we have used as a admin and roles here we have defined admin 1234, set password encoder true. Now what will happen here? So let's configuration check dot password encoder. We need to pass here password encoder. No need to pass the password encoder in here. Let's add the basic HTTP basic login HBC HBC dot disable. Going to run again. I hope it will run in this time. What happened? These projects information I will provide in the description. You can check in the description and up pull the projects from the GitHub repository unique violation. So I'm going to update the our key because that data already present in our databases. So that's why. So I'm going to update as a create DDL auto as a create. Let's run it again. I hope it will work in this time. Username John. If it is not work, then we will update our data, username and passwords. Yeah, now data has been inserted. Let's check our home API. Added the admin and adding as a admin 1234. Sign in. What happened in here? Why it is not going to null? An internal trying to authenticate the user. Why it is giving null? I have implemented the same things, but let's check what will happen. So here it is user password authentication filter an internal error occurred while trying to authenticate the user. Retry user. So in the retrieving time it is not providing the data as required. Hi. Okay, let's change one more thing in here. Maybe removing this one. That is not an issue. Removing this one and hiding as a enable web security. Now enabling this one, hiding this as we role result in this data, maybe it is causing some issue. So roles, hiding this one, 1 2 3 4 in code. Okay, let's run it again. I hope it will work. Let's check what is going on. Once the application is up, then we will check the API. Wait until the application is not up. Yeah, in the table data has been inserted. So I'm going to check again the databases. Continue, admin, and also checking the roles here, ID 1, and checking the SB roles here, enable true, enable true. Now let's access the API. So I'm going to accessing the home API, adding the admin 1 2 3 4, signing in. Why it is not going to log in? I have added the everything. Retrieve user, select user ID. Okay, so let's run this. Hibernate query, authenticate the user while trying to authenticate the user. Let's check why it is giving the error. I'm not sure why it is giving, so I'm going to our entity class. Let's check. In here we are going to comment this equals and hash method, then we will check. So commenting this one, and also we are commenting in the user entity as well, equals and hash method. I hope it will work. Let's stop and run it again. Once the application is up, then we will try again to access the API, home and item after login. Yeah, now application is up. Let's check the home API, entering admin 1 2 3. Now let's again trying to log in, admin 1 2 3 4. It is access denied because it is not find the. Now I'm able to access home page as well as item page. Let's log out and trying to, let's check the registration page. It is also I'm able to access. It is uh, not added implement, added the Spring Security. Let's log out and trying to access the registration page. able to access. Let's check the other API. Where is our configuration? Yeah, user login API. This is also can access without using the login. So let's, yeah, I'm able to access. Let's access the home API. In the home API, we need to require the username password for authentication. So I'm adding the username as admin and password adding as a admin123. Now I'm able to access. Let's add the item API. Item API I'm also able to access. That issue occurs because of the SBI rules and entity user entity classes. We have implemented the equals and hash code. So that's why Spring Security was not working as expected. Right now I have commented the entity in the entity user entity SB roles entity equals and hash methods. In upcoming video I will show you the proper creating the registration page. After login we can access the internal API as well. These type of project we will create and show you. These projects GitHub repository I will provide in the description. You can download the projects and run it in your local system. Thank you for watching my video. For further update, you can subscribe my channel so that you will get the next updated videos. Thank you.